Welcome back to Living Resonance. I'm Monifa, and today we're exploring the cosmic current of gene keys in the lunar cycle so you can cultivate your voice, live your genius, and weave your legacy in harmony with the current frequencies. And we are currently in the lunar phase of the full moon in Cancer, which is gene key 339 and human design gate 39. And if you didn't know, now you know, I am a Cancer sun and moon, Scorpio rising. So I'm always a little interested in a Cancer gate because there are so many different dynamics. And I think one of the dynamics we forget about Cancer is that it is leadership energy. It is got some roughness to it in that making sure that there's the structure to be able to thrive, right? And it's got that willingness to see the individual and to be the individual that it takes to fulfill while you're alive, right? That's the beauty, I think, of the nurturing that comes from Mama Cancer. So we're experiencing the themes of provocation, dynamism, and liberation of the gene keys, the genius of tension. And so that I decided to name this one, What Are We Really Afraid Of? What are we really afraid of? Because we're gonna get into it. We're gonna get into it. But first, we're gonna talk a little bit about human design, which is where we get our human design information is from Karen Curry Parker's Quantum Human Design, and it's about provocation in Gate 39 for Quantum Human Design. And it's the understanding of what it takes to release our limitations. And if you think about what we were talking about last new moon, which is going to come up a couple times, it's about understanding what it takes to be us, right? And what is limiting us from being us, I think, is this kind of transitional message coming into the full moon. And then how can we find the things that we're ready to let go of, release, stop doing that aren't us, right? But it's all about how do we find those things, right? Because we have to find the things to let go of them. And it's through provocation this time around. So Karen Curry Parker is telling us the hard part about this is just being aware that we're having beliefs and actions that are not aligned with faith and abundance that we can have and be what we want in the world, right? And then optimally, if you're living in the essence of this, then it's about being able to see opportunities in your experiences. So even if it's a bad experience, you're able to shift those to a ability of greater abundance and being able to experience lack and still be able to recalibrate to abundance, being able to notice that you are in lack and then do something about it. Change your attitude is how Richard Rudd would say it. So unbalanced is the way that this can be unbalanced in your energy is if you're getting basically you're getting the information of frequency, but you're not processing or aligning to it well. So it's not flowing, it's not doing the thing that it's meant to do in our bodies, in our minds. And in that unbalanced way, it feels overwhelming and you can only feel the lack and you start panicking because of the lack. So it can cause actions like hoarding or shopping out of fear of not having enough, right? So a lot of us, sometimes that becomes a stress habit, right? So it's just about noticing, am I doing this out of fear? Anything that we feel like we are doing out of fear, we really want to be aware of it. Not that we're going to fix the pattern automatically, because it is automatic, but that the more we can be aware of it and then start building things to support ourselves of not having to kind of lean into that dynamic or falling into that dynamic because of sometimes we've made that pattern easy by doing it over and over again. So we made it really easy to just pick up the credit card and start shopping, where somebody who knows they may have that pattern but is not trying to relive it may go put that in an ice block. And like, unless it's actually needed and actually desired, they're not chopping into that ice block to go get that credit card, right? So it's kind of those little things. We can start, it does not have to be perfect and highly associated all at once. We can do it in stages and steps and just help ourselves make good decisions, But going into the Gene Keys, we have the shadow of provocation, the gift of dynamism, and then the siddhi, SIDDHI, of liberation. And I saw the title for this shadow chapter of 39. I was like, ooh. I was like, that's good. He titled this one, The Tension of Transcendence. The reason why I love this is because as somebody who has been in habitual overwhelm and anxiety, I know that for a long time I was considering tension as restrictive and or bad. It automatically meant bad vibe, bad vibration, bad frequency. So try to get away from the bad stuff, right? And here, as we learn and grow in the Gene Keys, we understand the shadow is not wrong, right? So how can we think of tension as not wrong is a cue to what we're going to be hearing a little bit more about a little later. So the tension of transcendence, it is the ring of seeking, and is also titled in this section, Attitude and Altitude. So talking about that attitude, what does that mean? What is that going to do for us? So the nature here is of the warrior, the myth of the warrior. So any kind of hero story, if you're into the hero arcs or just adventure or anything, like a lot of our stories have hero arcs. They just look different for different themes, right? But this is about the actual original warrior. This is about violence, not just physical, but when we're provoked. So when we're provoked and act out, that nature, that quality in and of itself, Richard Rudd is calling the nature of violence. It is the initial seed of violence. So why are we doing this? Conditioned by society, we were provoked because we think that we can't be able to act in our own self-interest, I guess, but basically not be able to be ourselves. A lack of freedom. We're going to talk a little bit more about that later, but I have a couple questions that will help you to understand what is the conditioning aspect to this, because it's not, even though it's an active kind of warrior acting, violence is active. The actual key here is in the reception of what are we hearing. So the first question I have for you is, at what frequency are we listening? Okay, so we're always worried about other people's frequencies and other people. Ooh, I don't know if I like the way they did that, or the way they are talking about that, or the way what they want from me, and what are they really saying? And maybe that's how we're reading even other people's comments, because sometimes texts look different than how somebody would say something, right? But it can also be tone, right? Because we'll talk about that in a second. I've got a quote for that one. So how are we listening? And how are we programmed to respond to what we hear? So what are already our set points? We're like, oh, you can't say that to me. If you say that word in that way, in that sentence, then you can expect this from me. Like, I will be this person. What have we already programmed that is not really part of our true self, right? That we just have been taught or have been in the pattern of, because it's worked before, but it's not really something we want to continue to do or have to do, is kind of the way it feels in the moment, or carry forward, right? So what are we automatically saying? Well, if they say it this way, like especially with partners, or we've been with somebody for a long time, there are certain words you'll be like, I know you're not going that way, because if you go that way, I will da 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 da. I hate when you do that, and they haven't even finished a sentence yet, right? But that's because we know with certain words in certain orders, they tend to have this response, action, emotion, whatever, right? And then we assume that, and then we know the pattern that has quashed it in the past, or that we hope will quash it so eventually, and may not, but we keep trying sometimes. But there's a pattern there. It's like, that's why arguments often sound the same. They have the same rhythm, they have the same emotions, they have the same responses. And whenever you hear yourself saying something you said 1,000 times, it's probably not necessarily the other person. It's the dynamic. It's the dynamism that is happening between you two, right? So anyways, moving on. Why are we assuming life is coming at us? So we'll get into the programming partner here, but the programming partner shadow is struggle. So why are we assuming life is a struggle? Why do you assume that something's happening in a way that's meant to be hard, or for you to be out of order, like to get us, all frazzled, or to see us failed, right? Sometimes that's, at least for me, that's the reaction I'm having. I'm like, why would you say it that way unless you wanted to prove that I'm failing, a failure, or will fail, right? And those are the things that will trigger or provoke me, right? It's like, wait a minute, and so there's some patterns around that, about proving, about still having the option of not falling into that pattern. So whatever we do to react to those things, this is what we want to look out for. These are things to look out for in this energy. And we're in the middle of it right now, full moon. So why are we so easily provoked is a great question to ask. If we're always provoked around the same things, if it really keeps, like, it gets at the gut of us, not always are we going to change these things. These are aspects sometimes of our true personality. That's not necessarily a bad thing, right? But if we don't know it about ourselves, we might be reacting without any sense of creativity, control, freedom, which is what we're going to get into. Okay, so the shadow provocation, it's not just about physical violence, it's also emotional. So this is a quote I pulled from the book Button Pushing. Have you ever wondered how it is that your partner, parent, or child knows the precise code, tone, and word that really provokes your anger? And there's kind of a skip. It isn't what they say, it's in the tone they use. Tone never lies, although it is usually totally unconscious. And this is the truth, right? Like, end quote. This is the truth, right? It's just one of those things. People have a way of speaking, again, whether it worked in their previous family and other relationships with you before, in a way that got you to respond in the form or fashion they need to be fed in at that time. That could just be attention, right? Especially children. They just haven't gotten enough of your energy, enough of your attention, enough of your love. Then they could just be the attention. It doesn't matter if it's anger or love and joy, and they just want the energy. And partners are like this too. If you haven't spent enough time with your partner, then you'll notice they start to get a little provoking, a little irritating, right? And that's because whether they know it or not, they just want your attention. They want your awareness. They want your energy, right? And that's not necessarily a bad thing. That's the whole point of being on the earth with other people, right? So it's just a matter of being conscious of it, doing it in healthy ways. Oh yeah, I am being annoying, aren't I? Actually, can you sit over here? I would like to cuddle. Or can I get a hug? Or can we go out tonight? It's been a while since we spent some time together, and I just want to catch up and see what's going on with you, right? Different way to go about these things. And it can be different. Everybody's different. Depends on the relationship. For friendships or romantic partnerships or family dynamics, what that is, what that attention looks like, looks different. What you want from them looks different, right? It could just be, I love you. I love you. It's a good way to start if you want that back. If they have a problem with that, then you might have to get more direct. I would like to hear from you that you love me. Can you say I love you to me, please? Right? So another understanding for the shadow is that people who lack dynamism, again, that's the gift, have allowed themselves to feel trapped in some way. So we're going to get into the repressive and reactive parts of this energy soon. And that's part of it, is that people have a tendency to feel like they've been trapped. And this is how I recognize this for myself. And I always know this is a me problem when I'm going through the chapter to give you a fresh, the newest perspective for the moon. And I don't want to talk about it. I'm like, I don't want to talk about that. I'm like, why don't I want to talk about that? Because I know that I do it and that I don't want to deal with it, or I don't want to see how far have I improved, because sometimes you think you've done well enough in that area already. I already know this, right? I know this already. And so you think you're good. You don't want to have to go back and revisit something that you've already done work on. But that's how you know it's time to pull that out and bring it to the world. For me, anyways. So yeah, feeling trapped in some way, and that way can help it, can feel like there is no freedom, there's no possibility for freedom, that we are not allowed to be in the freedom of doing what we want, essentially, or what we truly want or truly desire, because it looks only a certain way. Anyways, but moving on, another part of the shadow is feeling hunger. So this is not just hungry hunger. It's the hunger we feel in a low frequency equals a low metabolism. So it's a literal function of the body, that if we're not in an alignment, if the energy is not flowing well, then we can tend to not digest as well. This is why we need to get out of fight or flight in order to have good digestion. This is why we do Oman's method. So again, if you haven't heard before, Oman's method is something I developed that directly works with your vagal tone, so your vagus nerve, so that you can feel more calm, confident whenever you're moving into any situation, but especially just for our daily lives, for those of us who have tendencies of overwhelm and anxiety, but also when we're on stage and we're doing our thing and we want to show up and show out. That is another good time for Oman's method. But in all that, it's from this understanding that when we are not in that alignment, not in that higher frequency, then we have these tendencies. We have a tendency for low metabolism. We're not digesting what was meant to be consumed, right? That we put in our mouth. So it becomes fat and all those things. And what we are really hungry for whenever we're out of frequency, if we're in a low frequency, is freedom. Okay? Freedom and creativity. The freedom to create is how I think of it. But he says directly creativity, in case people are wondering more like, well, what does he say? Like, what is the official word on this? But in our fear, we often feel that we're being trapped, whether it's in the pattern, whether it's in somebody's version of who they think we are, our identity, right? And what it makes us feel is that we don't have the freedom to act. And so that's a threat. It's not a guitar. It's a threat to our freedom, okay? And so that is usually where violence comes from. People act violently, especially when they're trying to protect freedom, protect the tribe's freedom, a sense of autonomy, the ability to do what we need to be nurtured to survive, that kind of thing, right? So, programming partner is 38, which is the shadow of struggle. And how is that showing up? Because a programming partner is essentially our opposition here. So we often feel like we have to be one or the other, right? I either have to fight or I'm just going to struggle, or they're going to have control over me, and I'm going to have less freedom. So if we're feeling like we're having to choose between these two things, it's just the dynamic of the understanding that one is creating the other. Right? The shadow will participate in the shadow. And so what happens is they kind of just ping back and forth. That's why they're called programming partners. The gifts also do very similarly the same, where they ping back and forth. If you're in the higher vibration, they will feed each other. If you're in the lower vibration, they will spiral downward. Right? So on the repressive side, the trapped feeling gives the feeling that we are struggled and repressed, and so we cannot express what we need, basically. But fear or anger, fear becomes anger when it's expressed. Because on the reactive side, we have provocative. There's expressed fear or anger, fear and anger. And the difference is not that we never should talk about our fears and our anger or that we're angry. It is that it's without the sense of freedom. So it's with this sense that you're fighting for your life, because whether it's your ego or your actual life that you feel is being restricted in that freedom, you will fight like it's your life, right? Which is why we can wound with our words, because we are trying to fight for our life, right? So it can feel like you're being trapped by needing to express anger without causing others pain. So this is another one that I've experienced myself, right? That you feel like you can't say anything, or there's nothing that will work to say. And so you might not say anything at all because you're worried about either hurting somebody or causing a worse situation. Either way, right? So not saying anything, having that not be expressed, can sometimes mean that you do something physical, which is why it turns into other things like shopping and hoarding, right? Because you might not actually hit somebody, but you might be needing to do something that makes you feel less restricted, right? So how do we get out of this dynamic? How do we get into the new frequency and the new expression? Number one, you could just go and change it. Once you have these understandings of what it looks like when we're not operating in our complete alignment, then take the indicator and go change it. Yeah, so there's breath practices, there's 1,000 different practices, but the Oman's method is what I have taught and recommend. So in the evolution, how are we evolving into this beauty of dynamism? By changing your attitude. Richard Wood is saying you got to change the way you listen. And when you change that, then you can change how you are responding or your action after being provoked. Okay? And then when you change your situation without changing your attitude, you'll just feel trapped again anyways. That's another thing. Richard's like, listen, man, like you can just go and somehow get it out of violence, out of, controlling the dynamic in whatever way you've decided to. But even once you've gotten the thing that you said you wanted, you would still feel trapped, because the truth is you want to be free to create. In order to feel free to create, it has to change from within. Okay? So this is my little addition. If we assume we are living spurts of struggle, so everything that's happening is about making our lives harder, then we are listening for what is keeping us trapped, not for what proves that we are free. So I feel like that was like a word to myself. So I also am passing that on. I'm also passing that on for everybody else, because I know this is like one of those mirroring things that drives us mad, especially, I don't know about you guys, but especially in partnerships. You're like, I could have sworn that I knew what I was talking about, and I knew what I was trying to get, and I knew what I was saying, and I knew it was going to happen, right? The way I wanted it to happen. And then, bop, 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 they say a combination of words, and all of a sudden you're back to 12 years old and you're like, no, that's not it. That's not right. You're like, okay. So what is dynamism in and of itself? It's the pressure of creativity. That's the name of the section of dynamism. The pressure of creativity. The tension of transcendence. So what is wrong in the shadow? People are always like, what's wrong? Oh, that's what I need to know, the shadow, because I need to know what's wrong. No. The shadow is the indicator of your perspective, right? So there's nothing wrong with tension and pressure. It's what is it provoking in and out of you, right? Here's a little example. If you've seen children, a lot of children are annoying. Okay. But they have so much energy, so much dynamism. Why? Because they have no restrictions, no assumptions, no programming that says they can't. Right? That's why we have to give them those boundaries. But you don't want to boundary them out of their vitality, out of their natural dynamism. It's a quote that's very important, I think, especially for children, in raising children, but also in reclaiming the truth of ourselves. Quote, "Genius is simply the fruit of natural intelligence that has not been interfered with." So if nobody ever discourages you from the things that naturally excite you, naturally make you, keep being curious, trying new things, doing more, then you will probably have a natural enthusiasm, dynamism as you move into your adult age. But most of us don't make it that way. Most of us aren't making it out that way. We are getting more and more tired because we feel more and more restricted and less and less possibility. And so that goes back to what Karen Curry Parker was talking about. Have we lost our faith in abundance, the possibility of that, right? So maybe we are starting to limiting ourselves just because of what we think we know or what we've heard or what has happened before. And it's time to revisit that and let go of those ideas and those patterns, right? And the energy of play reveals as creativity and genius in adults. So that same that play is what creates dynamism. Like they have this just limitless energy because they're constantly playing. And that play, that sense of play in adults tends to look like creativity and genius, because genius has that same hunger to it. Can you feel that? Just wants to move into that next truth of how we are creating in our minds and in our worlds. And that's the fun of genius, being in your genius. That's why we get into flow when we're in our genius, because we're like, ooh, what's next? Ooh, what's next? It's just a natural excitement that moves us from one thing to the other. And so what we're looking at here is that choice to provoke fear or to provoke creativity. Are we going to provoke ourselves? Are we going to allow the things that we're responding to generate the fear of a loss of freedom? Or are we going to allow it to provoke the possibility of what we can create? Again, this to me goes back to the new moon last time of naturalness. Really understanding that what naturally wants to come forth and come through you. Because the more we understand that, we can understand, well, why don't I feel free to do or be that? Right? And then we understand, oh, what am I afraid of? What has taught me that I cannot? And now we can get into it, get into the real stuff, start setting ourselves up to be in the freedom of our genius. So, one last thing, well, a couple more things. 3 types of warrior. So we have 3 types of warrior here. We have our fighting unconsciously anything that provokes. That's the first level of warrior. So we're just out here. Pop. What'd you say? Who do you think you're talking to? Right? Or we're in that second stage that we're provoked but controlled. So we might get those things where we're just like, yeah, no, I think I will take that energy and direct what I would normally make anger. Actually, I'm just going to do better. And then I'm going to beat you. That's I'm kidding. Or, I mean, that could be one of them. Or it could just be, however you choose to direct that energy. So a lot of artists will just turn that straight into art. Right? Like, yeah, I'm provoked. Yeah, I'm angry. But that's giving me a brand new idea for a painting, right? And that's the beauty of art, because it transcends even in the beingness. That's what's beautiful about art. So it can be the ugly thing, it can be the anger, it can be all these things we're trying to avoid, and it can still be beautiful because it transcends. It's moving back into the city. That's how I think of it. It's showing the pureness of the energy instead of what we've contrived around it that creates the distortion of the alignment. So I'm going to take you back to some questions I asked you earlier for your journaling. If anybody's got their journal out. The first is, what is the frequency at which we listen? What is the frequency at which I'm listening? Why do I assume that that tone means that, or that I have to be this in response to that? Yeah, how are we absorbing that information? How are we receiving anything, right? Because sometimes we're not receiving at all. We're missing everything because we won't receive it because we are assuming what we're hearing or receiving is struggle, right? Second question, how are we programmed to respond? How are we programmed to respond to the struggle? Right? Because even if it is negative, what's the best version of myself that I know is available to me, whether it looks confrontational or not? It's a good thing to find out. Like, yeah, in my best version, I would love to show up as this. What are my practices that I have to do? What do I have to prepare myself for? Do I have to put my credit card in the block of ice to show up in the way that I prefer if I am provoked? Right? So, and then one more, provoked to our best selves. So this is the thing, like, we are going to be provoked in this full moon. That is kind of the indicator that we will be provoked. So how are we going to show up as our best selves? And what are we afraid of? I think that's a really good way to know what you kind of want to start shifting out of your patterns, right? Is that, what are we afraid of? What are we afraid of we will be if we don't have that freedom? What are we afraid will happen? Because that is the non-truth. I call it fear is something. It's not real. This is my takeaway. Fear is not real, right? So what are we allowing to convince us that we are not free? It's a good takeaway on this. So last time we were talking about doing a little workshop on the myth, or living our myth, or what did I say? Living our legend, living our myth, something like this. So that is still in the works. I think that's a great idea. It's a great way to start the year. And then if you haven't seen the last one, there's the direct order of what that looks like, the direct order of the hero's journey, so you can start seeing maybe where you are got off of the path of your hero's journey by believing what these fear constructs are, and not that you believe that you weren't free to be who you are. Whatever that is, kind of go back into your story and find out what's going on. But we'll be doing a version of that together and seeing how we are going to live the victory of I could call it hero's journey. I know it's an actual person, but I mean, I think it's an actual person. I don't know. Hera as in the goddess Hera. So anyways, and there's that. Oh. And then what will be coming soon. So go ahead and subscribe, guys. I will be doing the 2026. I will do like a review of 2026 this month. Probably sooner than later. I'm thinking on the 7th. So check back on the 7th. But what's going to be cool about that is that I will be giving away a $20 gift card. So if you're subscribed and you comment and you've listened to this whole thing to the end, right? If you subscribe and you comment on the 2026 video, then I will message it. Whoever's first and whoever's first to respond. So I'll message the first person that comments within 24 hours. If you respond within 24 hours, then you're the winner. If you do not, I'm going to the next comment. So whoever responds to the winning will win the $20 gift card. So this will be fun. This is a cool start to the new year, don't you think? Don't you think? I think so. There's one more thing that was coming up this year. Oh, we will be doing like the organization thing too. So that's a separate thing. But if I can think of a creative way to do it, I might do it a little journeying as a whole, like making it fun. Organization as a way to our hero's journey, right? That kind of thing. I don't know. It's still bumping around in my head. I'm just coming out of my winter's rest. If you don't know what that is, that's a video also on the channel. And it's something that I think everybody should do. So if you didn't do your winter's rest, don't flail yourself in agony, right? Just find your own time. Just find any time. If it's a day, beautiful. If it's 3 days, fabulous. If it's an hour, cool. Just find yourself some time where you can just be with yourself, be reflective, allow yourself to receive the embrace of winter and be in a little cocoon for however long you can set that time aside, right? And if it's in parts, it's in parts, y'all. We're living a life out here. I get it, right? Maybe take an hour here, take 15 minutes there. It's okay. What's available is yours. It's yours. You can do exactly what you want with what's yours. Okay? All right, my friends. I will see you on the next time. I missed you. Hopefully I wasn't too hyper because I've missed doing this. But I mean, it's not like I've missed time, right? But I've been in my winters. Do I feel thirsty? I'm a little thirsty for connection. So yeah, I'm hoping to see if y'all want to join me live for some of this stuff. We can do it in webinars. I think that would be fun. I think it would be. Yeah, subscribe and yeah, hang out with me this year. Looking forward to it. I will see y'all then. Ta-ta for now.